AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys with my girl Cheryl Burke and my boy Renee Elizondo on iHeartRadio's Pretty Messed Up. This show talks about love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it, and a little bit of dancing as well.
I've never been this vulnerable and open, especially on Dancing with the Stars. You guys see an edited version of me. We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. Yeah. So just make sure you listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's pretty easy these days to feel disconnected. We're pulled in so many different directions. And that can leave us feeling incredibly fragmented. But together, we can grow more connected to ourselves and to each other. And that is what my new podcast is all about, coming home to our wholeness. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Wednesday after a Cowboy game. Always fun. Live in Los Angeles, this is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. New haircut, boy, on the air. New haircut. Very proud of it.
It looks very nice.
Thank you. Very professional.
I have no idea what day it is. What day is today? It's it feels like Friday because we had football last night.
I loved it. People complaining about too much football. It's like saying that too much bacon. Like, just more, please. I thought it was great.
That's a great comparison, yes.
I love it.
Yeah, that was awesome. And it was great to see Lamar Jackson out there playing well.
Yeah, that's enough bacon. Really, I'm done eating the most delicious meat ever. Really, I'm done with bacon. All right, so two ways to look at the Cowboy loss last night. Let's be optimistic. This is the way Jerry Jones is looking at it this morning. Listen, we had 10 more first downs. You know, our field goal kicker was lousy. And our offensive line is hurt. We still one time of possession. Heck, Andy Dalton got us within range of, we thought, winning this game for about 3.5 quarters. I mean, who can win with the injuries we've dealt with on the offensive line? We got more first downs. We rushed for over 100 yards. We won time of possession. With Andy Dalton, we were good on third down. Listen, we'll solve our defensive issues in the draft, and we're eventually going to get a better kicker than that stiff. That's one way to look at it. That's how Jerry Jones and the Jones family probably look at it this morning. There's this way to look at it. Dallas had 12 days to prepare for Lamar Jackson, who had one practice. And the Ravens rushed for nearly 300 yards. That's another way to look at it. Or that Dallas's head coach is not very inspiring. Dak Prescott's good, but not like really, really good. The defensive coordinator's a whiff. Special teams now are below average. I also look at this league financially. And there's one thing in the NFL you cannot do. Pay great money to average or good players. Here are the 6 highest paid Dallas Cowboys this morning and tomorrow morning. The 6 highest paid Dallas Cowboys are Dak, DeMarcus Lawrence, Amari Cooper, Zeke, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith. And I love Zach Martin. Everybody else gets paid more than their production and value. Just for comparison. And just like a salary cap is just like your home budget. You'll pay a lot for a mortgage if you got a house in a good neighborhood with a good school. You'll pay a little bit more money for a car if it's incredibly reliable. You got it on a reasonable lease. You don't want to overpay for that stuff. So those are the 6 highest paid guys. What would they do on the market? Would Dak have a big market at $38 million? DeMarcus Lawrence at $25 million? Amari at $20? There'd be no market. Zach Martin would have a market. So let's go now to the Kansas City Chiefs. They appear to be well run. Here are their 6 highest paid guys. Patrick Mahomes, Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Honey Badger. I'll just give you a heads up. On the market, yeah, they're going for top dollar. The Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, Zadarius Smith, Devontae Adams, Preston Smith. By the way, they didn't pay a ton for Za'Darius or Preston Smith. So those are not huge contracts. They're not paid that much on the market. All of them get the money they currently make, some more. Let's go to the LA Rams. Aaron Donald, Jared Goff, Jalen Ramsey, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Andrew Whitworth. Whitworth hurt and old. He wouldn't get a ton on the market, but he is a left tackle, so he'd get offers on the market if he was there for a year or two. Total team leader. You can complain about Jared Goff all you want. Would they be better with a quarterback you've never heard of? Jared Goff's won 65% of his games and got to a Super Bowl. Big picture, long-term, 5-year plan. Dallas has a lot of issues, and primarily the number one issue is they're paying a lot of money for good players. Some are aging and are hurt a lot. Zeke's not close to what he used to be. Colin, come on. Dak got hurt. That changed everything. You were 1-3 with Dak this year. You were 8-8 with Dak last year. With those 6 highest paid players, you got 1 wild card win with those Cats. That's it. You got to give me more than that. So Dallas has, to me, I look at Dallas. And our quarterback got hurt is not good enough. You look around the NFL, Seattle's highest paid people, Russell Wilson, okay, Jamal Adams, Carlos Dunlap, Bobby Wagner, Tyler Lockett. Now, Tyler Lockett is a little, at this point, because DK Metcalf is so great, Tyler Lockett feels a little overpaid. But if you look at his salary, it's not like a DeMarcus Lawrence salary. Dallas has major problems. And I've said, okay, give me a solution. The solution is, you got a really good draft pick. You're going to finish with a top 5 draft pick. You've got 2 choices with that draft pick. One of them, trade it and get multiple picks to get cheaper on the roster. Or 2, get a quarterback. Here's Jimmy Johnson last night in the pregame show.
I think the number one priority, they've got to sign Dak Prescott to a long-term contract. Not a franchise tag, because that will eat up too much of a reduced cap. Now, having said that, I don't expect them to have this high a pick in the draft in the future. So I would not bypass a franchise quarterback in the draft. Quarterbacks are valuable. Go ahead and take one if one's there when you're picking.
And let him sit behind Dak Prescott for multiple years. But this is not, listen, baseball survived when the Yankees were irrelevant in the 80s. The NBA was fine when the Lakers, pre-LeBron, were irrelevant for about 4 or 5 years. Football is going to be fine without the Dallas Cowboys. But Jerry Jones likes to be front and center, and this, Troy Aikman said it at the end of last night's broadcast. There are a lot of issues and not a lot of solutions. When the solution is, all right, let's sign Dak, who we like, to a contract, stretch it out so it's not as punitive, it's not a great solution. He's good, he's not special. He's not going to overcome this defense, overcome average coaching. He's not that special. So I think you're going into a really, really average half-decade if things don't change for the Cowboys. So last night, I didn't actually watch this. I saw it this morning because I was watching the game and doing stuff. The college football playoff rankings come out on Tuesday night, so I saw it on Twitter. Alabama 1, Notre Dame 2, Clemson 3, and Ohio State 4. I've really noticed this, and you're really seeing it in sports, is that COVID has been difficult for everybody. It's not been easy for anybody. But does everybody realize Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State, with or without COVID, would be here? You really see it in college football and sports. COVID is unraveling average. Below average, maybe slightly above average. But the only thing COVID's done to college football, Trevor Lawrence missed a week. Clemson probably beats Notre Dame if they have him. I saw a story this morning. What airlines have handled COVID the best? Delta and Alaska Airlines, my 2 favorite for the last 20 years. Well run is well run, even in crisis. Netflix, Apple, Tesla, Shopify, DocuSign, Amazon have all crushed. College football, everybody complains about the cancellations, and I can't believe this, and I can't believe that. Look at sports. The Dodgers have been one of the top run franchises in baseball, 7 or 8 straight division titles. COVID, they won a World Series. LeBron James, COVID, won the NBA championship. Tampa Bay Lightning, by hockey people, considered really one of the great franchises, rock solid top to bottom for the last 5 or 6 years, won the Stanley Cup. Look in the NFL. tell who's good today. The Steelers, the Hunt family, the Packers, the Saints are always well run, the Seahawks. Like COVID's bad, but I look at college football, and everybody says, what about Michigan? Michigan's not great. Michigan's good. What about Penn State? They're good. What about Oregon? They're good. Brian Kelly's great. Dabo Swinney's great. Nick Saban's great. Ohio State football's great. This thing's been tough on everybody. But when it's all said and done in sports, it's the Dodgers, it's the Lightning, it's the big dogs in college football, it's LeBron James, it's the Chiefs and the Steelers and the Packers and even the Patriots with all this mess. They're still in the playoff hunt. So I'm not saying it's been easy, but, people are complaining about Ohio State not playing enough games. Folks, COVID or not, this is exactly what college football would look like. There's been one little difference. Trevor Lawrence had to miss a game, and Clemson would have beaten Notre Dame. As it is, they almost beat him anyway. All right, coming up next. It is funny to me. There's so much. The word I don't think I've ever used is haranguing about Lamar Jackson. There's just so much. People just can't. God can't throw a football. Okay, I'm over it. Okay, I'm going to defend Lamar Jackson again, and then I'm going to move off defending Lamar Jackson because I'm over the story. And I've won the story, and I'm over the story. That, Nick Wright, Joel Klatt, next hour coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio. FS1 and the iHeartRadio app.
Do you ever think about how you're gonna die? I think I'm going to choke to death, specifically on a Cool Ranch Dorito.
I'm definitely slipping in the shower. I'm for sure gonna die taking a selfie. Anyway.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just three fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
And how you shouldn't trust your ex-boyfriend to help you get rid of a body.
We'll also find out about all of Nika's boyfriends.
That is untrue, and we will find out that Taylor's a horse girl. And Gabby is
the best one.
Okay, Gabby. Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex and the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death. We'll also learn how to grow as people through the power of friendship.
So listen to Cadaver Gals for your weekly dose of chaos.
Cadaver Gals is a production of School of Humans and iHeartRadio. New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha here, bringing you the devilish sounds and twisted treats of my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies, where I, your host, Kesha, bring you into my twisted universe, where the supernatural is, well, quite natural. Kesha and the Creepies explores supernatural subjects and alternative lifestyles with today's most exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult. You may know me from my party jams, like TikTok, We Are Who We Are, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable and mystical that drives these fascinating conversations that span non-traditional spirituality, psychedelic art, and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
New streaming service coming out called Discovery Plus. US only next year, Discovery Plus. They'll have Food Network on it, HGTV, my wife likes that, and some new originals too, Discovery Plus. So, one of the reasons I like football is just about winning games. It's nothing against, I like baseball playoffs, but so many baseball fans are into all these stats and on base and your whip. And by the way, I got plenty of whips at home that don't have anything to do with baseball. Anywho, I like winning. That's everything. When I put money down, I put $100 on a game last night. I don't care about anything but W. Lamar Jackson is 26-7 as a starter. Give me a break on, you don't like the way he throws. In California, when you're driving in Los Angeles, there's this freeway called the 405, and sometimes you get traffic jams, and I'm always jealous of motorcycles that just weave in and out of traffic jams. He's the motorcycle on the 405 during a traffic jam. When somebody is great at something, and by the way, last night his passer rating, if you're into stats, is 101.8. It's not like he can't pass. When you're amazing at something, I'll allow you to be so-so at something else. Shaq was so dominant and powerful, I could live with his crappy free throw shooting, and it was awful. Tom Brady is incredibly unathletic, but he's so good pre-snap, in and out of trouble, I'll live with it. Tyreek Hill's the fastest guy in the NFL. I'll live with the fact he's not going to win many jump balls. He's tiny. Probably not a great blocker. Amazon Prime. Their content overpriced a bit. Okay, doesn't blow me away. But good God, I order something and 15 minutes later, one of their drones drops it off at my house. I mean, this kid is the motorcycle in the traffic jam on the 405 in LA. He's weaving in and out of stuff. By the way, you put his passing numbers up. He passes well enough. Okay, if you look at his NFL rank right now, TD interception in the first 3 seasons, his third in the NFL. His passer rating is 4th. And I don't know how I don't even care about how you figure out a passer rate. His record now is much better than Josh Allen. This is not baseball. He wins games. When you give me something, it's like when you go buy a Ferrari, you give up gas mileage concerns. You give it up. You move to Phoenix. It's going to be hot in the summer. But the other 9 months are great. There are no perfect quarterbacks outside of Russell Wilson's even too small. Aaron Rodgers can be a little aloof. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he's the perfect one. Good luck. Needle haystack, good luck. Did you know he was the perfect one 3 years ago at Texas Tech with a losing record? So Cowboy fans defend Dak to the core. He's not an elite thrower and not an elite runner. Lamar does something that's not available on the market. There's nobody that electric. I'll live with the passing stuff. He makes enough throws. He made one to the corner last night that was great. They were good on third down. He seems to be good on third down. John Harbaugh talks about, the guy had one practice last night and helped engineer a running game that created 294 yards.
Well, the one thing you do know about Lamar, you're going to get everything he's got. And that's really all you can ask for. He's going to give you whatever he has. And it turned out that he had a lot tonight. And that was good to see. I don't think you could predict that. He came out to practice. He looked good in practice. He was strong and healthy. And I'm just impressed with the fact that he was on top of the game plan so well. He'd been studying, obviously, the whole time he's away, and he played great football today.
2 things I like about Lamar. He plays with urgency. Like when I watched Lamar play, this was my knock on Jay Cutler. I talked about this yesterday. It's been my knock sometimes on Sam Darnold, on Baker Mayfield. Sometimes they don't play with urgency. With Lamar, he makes every field play like it counts. That's big to me. Even when he makes mistakes, he plays with urgency. There's no casualness to the way he plays. I love that. The second thing is, he's incredibly coachable. He takes criticism, he doesn't get defensive, he owns it, and he gets better at stuff. So those are really big things to me. He plays with urgency. When he fails on a play, he's mad at himself. He doesn't point fingers. Sometimes he's pissed. But he's not yelling at you. He's not pointing fingers. He's mad at himself. And the other thing, and boy, this is big to me, he doesn't get defensive about criticism. He owns it and then goes in the off season and tries to fix it. So he's not perfect, but he's 26-7 as a starter. You can talk about whips all you want. I'm just, it's private to me. Enjoy with the news.
Herd on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
You like messing with the internet.
What? Excuse me?
So, Eagles head coach Doug Peterson confirmed yesterday that he will be starting Jalen Hurts, the rookie, as the quarterback against the Saints.
Yeah.
Doug Peterson was asked about his decision to replace Carson Wentz as the starter.
We're not where we want to be as an offense. I looked at the whole thing and decided that for this week and to look for that spark again, to try to get the team over the hump, to try to get everybody playing better, right? And obviously the quarterback position is included there. So that's really the decision that I came to, moving forward this week.
I really don't know where I sit on this. Obviously, I had a feeling that Jalen Hurts was going to be the starter for at least this week, and it's the right decision. Carson Wentz has been playing terrible. You can't continuously reward any player with the starting position while they're playing terrible if you have someone like Jalen Hurts sitting on the sideline. Now, if they had no one else and they have to ride out with the rest of the season with the way that Wentz is playing, fine. But you did draft Jalen Hurts, and everyone else on the team is sitting around like, the rest of us have to compete for our position, and if we don't play well, we might get replaced.
Right.
He's out here throwing the game away and looking terrible, and every week he's still there. We should see what we have in Jalen Hurts.
Now, I am a little bit on the opposite side, which is if you have a statue of a former backup and then you draft Jalen Hurts in the second round, to be a little insecure. I'm going to give him a little pass on that. I know we should just get over it, but listen. I will watch the game. Philadelphia had moved into unwatchable territory.
Yes,
they are now back into watchable
they're now
territory.
Must watch.
Yes, like I just. That's kind of as a consumer. Are you watchable or unwatchable? They move back into watchable territory because I want to see what happens.
Oh no! The second he came in the game, the whole situation changed for us as well. Like this is content. Now there's a quarterback controversy in the middle of the season. We rarely get those. Yeah. So this is a big deal for us. But moving forward for the Eagles, what do you do if Jalen Hurts does go out there? I'm not saying that they're going to beat the Saints, but if he keeps it competitive, if they do beat the Saints, then what do? They have the Saints, then they have the Cardinals, they're at the Cardinals, at the Cowboys, and they have Washington for the rest of the season.
You know what's really funny? Just because it's the NFL, watch Philadelphia beat the Saints. That's so NFL.
And listen, Carson Wentz, I still believe can play. I think there's a lot of factors that are playing into his season.
Cool.
But you do also, if you want all the praise of franchise quarterback, you do have to deal with the criticism of it. I don't know. I'm almost always on players' sides with this, but.
And I'm very critical of players, so we're doing a role reversal.
We are, because I don't buy into the whole you have to walk past Nick Foles every day. You didn't physically win that Super Bowl. Did he contribute to that season? Of course. He was having an MVP season before he got injured. He's a major reason that they won that Super Bowl.
I have a feeling you and Nick Wright will be on the same path on this.
We are in a very competitive business. There's not a day that I come into work without the anxiety that I could be replaced. So I do my job as such.
Right,
and if we came in and we had horrible ratings for an entire football season...
Yeah, that's never happened to either of us, but if it did...
It's never happened, but if it did... There would be changes and you would expect them. So Des Bryant, very weird situation before the game yesterday. Now, obviously we didn't know how much Des was going to contribute to this game, but it was a storyline before the game started. Yeah. He was unable to play against the Cowboys because he tested positive right before last night's game. He was pulled from warm-ups, which is what he tweeted that he was warming up. He was very unhappy. He then tweeted probably the tweet of 2020, which is, I'm about to drink some wine and Coke. It should really just be a shirt to define this entire year.
Really good.
His emotions were understandable, but they went out and... Lamar Jackson said that they felt like they had to get the win for him.
That really is the 2020 tweet of the year.
It is the slogan of the year.
I'm
about to drink some wine and Coke.
Really
he was obviously very upset. He said that he wasn't going to quit for the rest of the season. He said he also tweeted, "This was more than just another game for me. It wasn't about revenge. I didn't need a catch. I just wanted to make a point." I feel bad for Des. This is something he was really looking forward to. I was looking forward to seeing him out there.
I didn't think he was. To be totally honest, I was shocked he's back in the league. I kind of thought he would do a TO, which is he looked great in a T-shirt, but best days behind him. And Baltimore, good organization, went and got him. So to me, him being there is one of the stories of the year.
Yeah, and it was significant. So what basically happened was his test that he took earlier was flagged, so they had to retest him, and then when it came back,
what does that mean? It's flagged?
There were some irregularities with it or something. It was inconclusive or something like that.
I thought they were positive or negative.
You can have an inconclusive test, which generally means that you're positive, but they have to retest you. So I mean, it's a lab.
You can have
something can be wrong with the sample, or wasn't enough, or whatever. But it turns out he was positive, so he got taken out of the game. So according to reports, James Harden told the Rockets that he would be open to a trade to the 76ers or possibly other contenders. The Rockets and the Sixers have had no substantive talks about a potential Harden deal, according to sources. Now, Daryl Morey is with Philadelphia now. He said he doesn't want to break up Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. I don't know what's going on in this situation with James Harden. He also posted a very interesting picture, a cryptic picture on Instagram. He's just posing in Adidas gear. There's no Rockets or NBA logo or anything like that.
Like he's an independent guy.
Yeah, it's like he's a free agent.
You know, that is, we should all use Twitter occasionally for that. I was very cryptic today on Twitter. It's fun. The Twitter should, I always tell my daughter, manipulate it. It's a toy. Don't use it as a necessity.
Yeah. I mean, social media in general.
Fun. It's a toy.
It's a job to me. I always think it's funny when people think that they know me.
Yeah,
I'm good for going on an entire weekend trip and no one even knows I was gone.
Yeah,
like,
me, actually.
I choose to allow you to. I'm actually an extremely private person, as you know. I choose to allow you to think that you're involved in my personal life. I think that James Harden is obviously sending a message. I just don't know what that message is because the Rockets are in control of the situation. They have no urgency to trade him. They need to get the best deal for them, and he's under contract. So they're just going to have to deal with an uncomfortable situation for a while.
Yeah. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Live
You know,
News.
it is interesting, though, how we treat NBA players and we treat football players. Football players, it's like, hey, get over it. There's a statue out in front of your backup, and we're going to draft in the second round Jalen Hurts, and you're going to be asked about him constantly. Just get over it. In the NBA, Adam Silver's like, all my guys we're paying $30 million a year are miserable because of Twitter. And we have, like, sympathy for all the mean people on Twitter for NBA stars. NFL, it's like, deal with it. I don't think it's easy to be in Philadelphia where they're mad at the sunrise. They're mad at the bagels in the morning, and you draft a quarterback in the second round, and you get asked questions about him every Sunday if you have an incomplete pass. I think it's tough for Carson Wentz. I'm very sympathetic. Let's go to Nick Wright, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. So Joy and I disagree on this. You're a very sympathetic person. I'm sure you'll take the side of Carson Wentz. Where do you land on this one, Nickster?
Well, quickly, just to back up Joy on something, she absolutely will take a trip and tell no one. She is even known to take trips all the way to New York City and then tell my wife she's in town and not drop her old buddy Nick Wright a note. Like we didn't get hired by FS1 together, work together. I find out third hand she's 4 blocks away, but that's neither here nor there. Now on Wentz, here's the thing. I do feel badly for him. I do, because I have a soft heart and I'm a kinder person than you, Colin.
Yeah.
But Philly's got one move here, and you know who can help him? Our old buddy Colin Cowherd. Because their one move is to trade him to the Colts this offseason.
It makes sense.
The Colts got a quarterback who's almost 40. The only time Carson Wentz has been great was when Frank Wright was calling the plays.
True.
The Colts are going to be too good to draft a quarterback. They obviously don't love Jacoby. They have a great offensive line, a very good defense, a good running game, all the things you would want to help support Wentz. Because Philly, they obviously hope Hurts is good, right? So if Hurts is good, you can't then bench him next year. You can't cut Carson because that's $60 million. And trade him, yes, if you trade him, it's a $34 million cap hit, but it's a $35 million cap hit if you do nothing. So at least you'd be ripping the Band-Aid off. Now, would they get anything in return? No. Would they maybe even have to attach their own draft pick, like a 4th rounder, to go along with Carson? Possibly, but then at least you can turn the page. So I think Colin Cowherd needs to call Chris Ballard and start singing the praises of Carson Wentz about how he could be good, because I know you're a Carson Wentz guy. So I feel like that you can help be the,
Bridge.
the lubricant to make this happen.
Well, I
yeah,
will
the
say,
bridge, exactly.
I will say this, I think you make a lot of sense. People forget they're paying Phillip Rivers $25 million and Jacoby Brissett $20. So right now the Colts have the highest quarterback payroll in the NFL, and both those guys are on one-year deals. So I think the Colts is a perfect fit with Frank Reich. So let me go to this. So I said yesterday is that it used to be 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't hear everybody's opinion. Social media has changed that. And to keep your sanity in life, you just have to mute certain people. LeBron James is bothered what Kyrie Irving said about Kevin Durant. And I'm like, LeBron, you got to push the mute button on Kyrie. Earth is flat. Steak's not actually doesn't come from anything on this earth or natural. Like, there are certain people that are gifted, they're funny, but for your sanity, you have to mute them. And I don't understand LeBron taking everything personally from Kyrie Irving. What is going on here?
So here's why I think it stings LeBron. Because you can't just look at LeBron and Kyrie like a couple who got divorced. You've got to look at LeBron and Kyrie like a couple who has kids who got divorced. Meaning, they're always going to be in your life in one some form or fashion.
Yeah.
So you want a good relationship there. LeBron's greatest singular moment of his career came alongside Kyrie. And Kyrie was a huge part of it. He hit the shot when they were tied with Golden State. Now, it should be noted, LeBron hit the free throws to ice the game, and LeBron, all that stuff. But Kyrie hit a really big shot. And so the fact that, there might be reunions one day. It's always going to be replayed. And for Kyrie, my old buddy World B. Flat, stole that from Basketball Reference. It's a great nickname. It's what Kyrie should be called from now on. for him to just all of a sudden be like, yeah, it's good to finally have a teammate who can hit a big shot, I would be wounded too. And in fact, I was wounded. Because I feel like I won that championship alongside the both of them, and Kyrie has marred it a bit. So I was hurt, so I can only imagine how hurt LeBron was.
As a guy that spent a lot of time in Houston, we shift gears to James Harden. Whereas LeBron is the great lubricator, Dwayne Wade was getting old, LeBron solved it. Kyrie was injury prone, nobody liked him in Cleveland, LeBron solved it. Lakers front office and ownership was completely dysfunctional, LeBron solved it. James Harden is the opposite. He's the agitator, the money, the support, the coach, CP3, Dwight Howard, Westbrook. I mean, at some point, you gotta eliminate people in your life if you can't make them happy. Like, isn't it time for a reboot? I know you love Harden and Houston. It's time for a reboot. Trade him, right?
Well, I think they're going to trade him, and I wouldn't trade him for 30 cents on the dollar. I think you hold out for Ben Simmons or a package similar to that. But I want to say something about James Harden. Because for the entire time I've known you, I've come on this show and I've defended Harden. I think Harden is the 26th greatest player ever. I think he has been unfairly maligned in the media. The way he has conducted himself the last 10 days is an embarrassment. And I'm not speaking just for myself when I say that. Very powerful agents and players across the league hate what he's doing. Because there is a way to go about your business as a professional, and there's a way to go about your business as James Harden has. And if you want to force your way out of Houston, so be it. But to go on a nightclub world tour in the middle of a pandemic, give Lil Baby $100,000, be at Dre's till 5 in the morning while your teammates are practicing, and while Steven Silas, in a league that needs to do a better job giving minority coaches a chance, is finally getting his long-awaited chance, and you're making his job impossible because reportedly you don't like the culture in Houston. My guy Harden, you are the culture in Houston.
Right.
No player in the league has been more empowered than you. You want You didn't want Dwight, he's gone. You don't want Chris Paul, he's gone. They've given you everything you wanted. His mom goes on IG, says, I don't think he wants a chance to win a championship. James, I love you, but one of the big reasons they've won a championship is because of his failures in the biggest moments. And so for him to want out is fine. For him to go about it, like with respect to Seinfeld, with like Costanza pulling around the World Series trophy in the parking lot, daring them to do something about it, is embarrassing. And other guys around the league don't like how he's handling this. That I can tell you, not on speculation, that I know.
By the way, a Cowboys thought, Kansas City is great, not just because of Andy Reid and Mahomes, but they have 5 or 6 highly compensated players, and they're all wildly productive. And if they hit the market, they would be scooped up. Seattle, same. Rams, same. Green Bay, same. Dallas is paying people who would not get an offer outside of Zach Martin on the market. What is the way out for them?
Yeah, I think that you're 100% right on almost all of this with the Cowboys. I think now I picked them to go to the Super Bowl before the year, so for me this is Monday morning quarterbacking. I was way wrong on them. But you said it earlier, Colin. The worst thing you can do in this league is pay good players or average players like stars. It's why Philly is in such a tough spot with Wentz. It's the exact problem for the Cowboys. You showed the Chiefs, the Chiefs' highest paid guys. One guy is underachieving, Frank Clark.
Yeah.
And he finished every single playoff game they had last year. The last play of the game, Frank Clark got a sack to ice the game, so he's got a grace period here to get back into it. You cannot have a bunch of guys paid like all pros who are fringe starters or just above average players. So what's the path? I think it is, assuming they're bringing back Dak, trading whatever pick they have for multiple picks to try to restock that way. Because they got some bad contracts. I mean, Zeke's extension, I think, goes for like another 4 years after this one.
Yes.
top 5 back in the league? No. And so, I mean, they rushed to pay Jalen Smith. They just paid a lot of guys too early and far too much. So, yeah, I think you're right on that, which would be a good place for us to end. But I'm going to hijack this for a moment because I've conspired with your producers. The greatest poker player ever is a man named Doyle Brunson. He's also known to be a great gambler. He had a very interesting tweet yesterday. Show it to America, please, wonderful Herd producer staff. Doyle says to me, "Yep, Nick, I tape your show and Colin Cowherd's show." That was spelling error. Watch it every day. Bet a lot of money on your picks. That's to me. Much better than this year's Blazing 5 from Colin. DM your special picks to me. You see that, America? That's me elbowing Colin Cowherd off his own corner. And Doyle Brunson, Texas Valley, Poker Super System, 2-time World Series main event champion, is co-signing it. So, when the pandemic's over, Doyle, if you're watching, I'm flying to Vegas. Colin's going to arrange it. I'm going to play in one of these poker games you play in. That might cost me a lot of money, but it's no problem because Doyle and myself are bathing ourselves in our riches from all our football picks this year. So that's all. I just wanted to put that up there. How great is that?
It was
Doyle Brunson.
I know. I saw it. You never spare an opportunity to be really obnoxious to your mentor and friend. I always really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great. Let's wait for it every Wednesday.
It was great.
This is fantastic.
All-time great moment for me.
Nick, good seeing you, buddy. First thing first. Coming up next, my favorite coach ever at the microphone, Mike Tomlin did it again. I may not like the Steelers. God, I love Mike Tomlin. Dropped another gem yesterday. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I'm Kate Berlin. I'm Jacqueline Novak.
We're comedians, best friends, and consumerist hogs, hemorrhaging cash in the wellness world.
That's why we made a podcast, Poog, a quixotic quest for wholeness. Here's a little snippet of us trying out a top-dollar massage gun on our muscle manipulation episode. Press on once. Now press the up dot.
Oh, damn, bitch. 2100.
Now, I want you to notice.
Whoa.
Do you want to know the story of the guy who created this device?
No.
No? The rudest person.
I'm so rude. I'm here with this free product.
They say float it.
Ow, ow, ow.
And then
ow.
go deep.
Ow, the right inner thigh has pain. I repeat, the right inner thigh has pain.
You float it in. You float it in.
Whoa, the tension in the calves is reached an all-time high. Though we suffer from no ailments, we are looking to heal.
For us, salvation lies in the next product, practice, or potion.
This is our hobby.
This is our hell.
This is our naked desire for free products. This is Poog. That's P-O-O-G.
Poog.
On the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts,
or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You still pay for cable to get Lifetime. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're basically a seasoned detective, and you're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Each week on Solve, you will untangle a case that has pushed detectives to their limits. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence from interrogations, crime scenes, and witness testimony to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. One crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
CarShield.com, code HERD, 10% off. Warranty runs out, CarShield.com. Mike Tomlin used to drive me crazy. He used to drive me crazy. Not that he wasn't a good coach. We all know he's a Hall of Famer. But the team's role was loose. And then I've come to a point with Mike Tomlin, because I'm a curious guy. I want to get better and smarter, that the stuff that Mike Tomlin controls is never the loose stuff. It's always the offensive stuff, which tells me it's Big Ben. And because every year, the Steelers develop defensive play. I never look at the defensive stats and think, they are underachieving. It's Pittsburgh's offensive stats. And Mike Tomlin's a defensive coach, like a Tony Dungy or a Bill Belichick. You hire a coordinator, and you kind of let them take it. And so Mike Tomlin is so good. John Gruden and Tomlin are so good interviewing. Everything's in 9-second sound bites. Everything is unbelievable. And he is getting tired of this epidemic of dropped passes with the Steelers. It's been so bad for the last month, and Tomlin talked about it.
They can catch the ball or they can get replaced by those that will catch it, and it's just as simple as that. Like I've often said, man, I expect guys to make routine plays routinely. And when there's a pattern of that not happening, then we got to look at, who we're throwing the ball to. The coaching of catching the football for those who are employed to do it at this level is not something that I got a lot of patience for.
It's so good. So here's the thing. Pittsburgh's like, I got football team. No, your offense drives me crazy. The playoffs are all about details. They're not about the most talent. New England wouldn't be a dynasty if it was about talent. It's not about talent. Pittsburgh's had more talent than New England most of the last 20 years. But they are first in the NFL in drop passes, and they're near the bottom in yards per carry, which is another efficiency stat. Yards per carry doesn't mean you have the best backs. What it means is your blocking techniques can hold people for 4.2 yards a carry. So, once again, Pittsburgh's issue are on the offensive side. They drop too many passes, and their yards per carry stinks. I know their offensive line's not bad, and I don't blame Tomlin for this. So this is why, when I watch Pittsburgh, I see a team that can't run and drops the ball, and they're not buttoned up. There's been the Saints and the Patriots are always buttoned up. Now, they lack components. New Orleans doesn't throw the ball over the top. New England, outside of the Randy Moss years, has never been terribly dynamic on the outside. But I always feel they're buttoned up. Once again with Pittsburgh, I feel like offensively, you're going to play a Kansas City that does all the little things well. Or New Orleans that does the things well. If you got to a Super Bowl and Pittsburgh's talented but doesn't do the little things well. And so they just and I used to really bag on Tomlin about this, but the more I inspect it, it is mostly offensive side of the ball underachieving. And I like the way he addressed it. By the way, the Carson Wentz topic is fascinating. So Nick Wright was on, he just mentioned this, and he's right. He said there's a perfect place for Wentz to go. It's the Colts. It is the place to go because they're paying Phillip Rivers $25 million a year, Jacoby Brissett $21, the backup. So it's $46 million. You'd save $10 million getting Wentz, right? And they're pretty much a young roster. The other thing is people will think, well, that is cost prohibitive. No, it's not. What's cost prohibitive is Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett making 46. If Wentz goes back and works as well as he did with Frank Reich earlier, that's market average. The other thing we do, we know, you and I know this, not only in football but life, environment matters. Leonard Williams was traded from the Jets to the Giants. He is a significantly better player, same house, goes to the same stadium. He's a better player with the Giants than the Jets. Why? Coaching and culture. Ryan Tannehill in Miami to Tennessee. It's like a different player. Last year he was like a Pro Bowler at times. Why? Different culture. I wrote somebody else down today that made me think of that. There's another player somewhere. Oh, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Miami couldn't figure out where to use him. Pittsburgh brings him in. The first game they had him, he had like a pick six. So Minkah, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Tannehill. We know that Wentz, right now in Philadelphia, he doesn't connect with his coach. He doesn't connect with his coordinator. He's a small town kid in an angry northeast city that's loud and outspoken. It doesn't work. So just change the environment. Leonard Williams to the Giants. Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Steelers. Ryan Tannehill to the Titans. Carson Wentz. It's not a bloated contract. With that offensive line, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, that GM and that coach, if he works, $35 million is exactly what you'd pay a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. Joel Klatt, gonna bust my chops, I imagine. Hour 2, live. LA, it's the Herd.
Hi, this is Bowen Yang here, and if you're as excited as I am about the upcoming 4th season of Search Party on HBO Max, then you'll want to tune in to Search Party, the podcast. In each episode, I go behind the scenes with the writers and actors of the disturbingly dark comedy and chat favorite moments and themes with special guest celebrity fans. Search Party Season 4 comes to HBO Max on January 14th, with Seasons 1 through 3 available now. Meanwhile, subscribe and listen to Search Party, the podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I created the podcast Prodigy.
To find the answer to a question, can genius be created? Many believe it can, because it's happened before. Was it a coincidence, or is it repeatable? In pursuit of the answer, I interviewed brilliant academics, social scientists, groundbreaking researchers, and the prodigies themselves to gain a better understanding of intelligence, skill acquisition, expert performance, and genetics. Disregard all simple explanations, because complex questions require complex answers. My name is Lowell Berlanti, and I'm seeking the answer to a very complicated question. What is the nature of our intelligence? Listen to Prodigy every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Hillary Clinton, host of the podcast You and Me Both. 2020 has been a real doozy, and one thing that's kept me going has been the chance to talk to fascinating, brave, and inspiring people. If you've missed any of these conversations, now is the perfect time to check them out. Listen to the entire first season of You and Me Both on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Nika. And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just three fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex in the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death.
So listen to Cadaver Gals.
New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific. On Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go, live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. Got a new haircut today. Really good about it. Really do. You know, Joy Taylor's joining me. So it wasn't long ago, during COVID, everybody was home all the time, so it was very easy, Joy, for me to like text or call executives in all these sports because I knew they were home.
Right, there's no excuse to not answer your phone.
Yeah, so it was like during COVID, I talked to a lot of executives in leagues and a lot of sourcing. I mean, there'd be days I think they wanted me to call because they were bored out of their minds. You couldn't do anything. And I remember talking to a big shot in the NBA. And he was saying, I'll tell you, the NBA is great. I said, the two things that worry me if I ran the NBA is it's very labor-driven. Like, the employees have almost, to me, have too much power at times. And I do think there should be some level of balance between the corporate world, the entity itself, and the players. Sometimes it's just, they desperately need MJ, Shaq, LeBron, more than the players sometimes feel like they need the league. And that lack of balance, I think, is troubling. And the other thing is, and I said to him, the NFL doesn't need anybody. And he said, well, what about the Cowboys? And I'll give you an example. The Dallas Cowboys just got flexed off of Sunday Night Football. In fact, the Cowboys-Niners game, 2 of the top 8 brands in the league, just flexed out. I don't need you. That's the power of the NFL.
Well, it's Nick Mullins versus Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
On a standalone game.
Yeah. But, the idea in baseball that you'd flex out a Yankees-Dodgers game or in the NBA, it's... even in the last few years of Kobe, the Lakers were on national TV occasionally. Like the Cowboys now, you just flex them off. And the Cowboys are, next to the Yankees, probably the biggest brand in America.
Well, as long as the Cowboys are competitive, I wouldn't see that. Like, if they were still, I know they're technically still in it, but, come on.
I'll tell you this.
Neither of those teams have anything to play for. At this point.
Jerry Jones, this bothers him more than that loss. Because you're now messing with Jerry's brand. You told Jerry, we just don't find your story compelling.
But, we are in the business, so we watch every game.
Right. Except Jack's games, yeah.
Are you going to watch that game? If it's by itself?
Well, if it was on Sunday Night Football, I would, because it's by itself. But I would say, if you ask me right now, it's a good question. Who are the most interesting teams in the NFL? Like, what gets me to a TV fastest?
Chiefs.
Chiefs
Steelers,
are there.
Packers.
Packers. Saints. I still think the Rams are a good watch because of the
Seahawks.
Arizona, Seattle way up there, Arizona. And you don't have to be exhilarating. I find the Giants fascinating because I like their story. I find Miami interesting because I'm really into Tua and their story.
Bills.
Absolutely. Buffalo's a great watch.
Patriots. Like, the Patriots-Rams game tomorrow is going to
Oh,
be a
you're
great
right.
watch.
No, you're right. No, I'll watch. Dallas is not on my top 10.
Like, last night's game was fun.
Oh, I thought it was great.
But after the game was over, it's
Oh,
like
by the
a nice Dallas to see. Season's over.
By the way, Cleveland's absolutely in my top 10. Raiders are near the top 10. I always like watching Baltimore.
Yep.
Dallas is not in my top 10 to 12. I mean, I find the Yankees always pretty interesting, and even a dysfunctional Laker franchise was something. Listen, I guarantee it, that bothers Jerry more than the loss to the Ravens. Sunday Night Football, the league flexed you out. That is all. Now they're saying your business isn't good enough for our platform. That's not great. That's not great. Joel Klatt is, despite our differences, as I've talked about this before, I'm a bit of a mentor to Joel, and I love having him on. He's had 44 quarterback records at Colorado. Most of those have been wiped out, I'm sure. But it's still great to have him on. Joel Klatt, the voice of college football. The well-appointed man who comes on with nothing but information.
What's up, man?
So
How are you?
I'm great. Let's start with
Wait,
this.
can I go backwards real quick?
Okay.
Did you say Cleveland's in the top 10 in your league?
Yeah, because I think Baker, now that he's playing well, is interesting.
He's been very nice to Cleveland.
No kidding. You know, people love me there. They don't admit it, but they do.
No, I've actually been there. They don't.
Joel, he put the Cleveland Browns above the Steelers in the herd hierarchy this week.
Well, that's questionable in and of itself. But, you know, he might be trying to let Cleveland. He's trying a little too hard for your affection. You know what I mean?
Anyway, so I want to say this about Ohio State. So this happens, doesn't happen a ton in sports, but there are moments where Tiger was actually bigger than golf for a while. Like, he left tournaments, and they shut down one in Colorado, and the Masters lost half its audience. So, and it's rare. Michael Jordan left. The NBA didn't have the next Michael, and they lost 50% of their numbers. So he was at least worth the league, his value. So I look at Ohio State this morning, and my takeaway is, if I was Ohio State, I'd be like, I don't care what the conference says. The bottom line is, I want to get to the playoff.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say this respectfully because our network has the Big Ten. They've outgrown the Big Ten.
In a lot of respects, and yet I think that they're also sensitive to the fact that, you know, this is not new. Right, the Big Ten is not new. This was not just put together. This is not like the Pac-12 in this iteration where it feels kind of like the Big Ten has history to it, and so much. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State have played every year since 1917, and so I think that they're at least sensitive to the fact that they don't want to throw that out because of 1 year. But the Big Ten has done no favors to Ohio State at all.
Give me an example.
First and foremost, Ohio State was fighting for them to just be patient at the beginning. Don't do anything rash like cancel the season.
You're right.
And they did it anyways.
You're right.
Okay, and so then Ohio State had to fight to even get back onto the field this year in order to potentially play for a national championship. And once they got that momentum going, Ohio State was fighting for an early October start. And the Big Ten punted on that. They wanted to go later in October. Well, when you go later, now you don't have any wiggle room. And in terms of Big Ten teams, Ohio State is the only team in the Big Ten that has lost 2 games, not on the scoreboard obviously, but gotten canceled because of COVID issues at other schools. They're the only one that has had 2 games now.
That's a good
postponed because of other schools' issue. Now, they had one postponement because of their issue in the Illinois game. But in terms of Maryland and now Michigan, it would be the opposite side of that.
So if Ohio State says today, talk to the hand, right now, all we care about is Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame. We're moving past your conference and your issues right now. I would defend them on that.
But what would they do? I guess that would be my question. In what
the
regard? Do you want them to just go find a game?
Well, my thing is, or no, why do I need to find a game? You butchered it. The playoff's going to let me in. I'm going to be let into the national championship. That grouping. So why do I have to appease you, the Big Ten? Everybody knows I'm one of the 4 best teams. That's what I care about for the rest of the year.
Yes, but I still think that they need games, right? And
one more.
Maybe one more, and we'll see if I've got some wind that they're going to change the 6-game rule, and Ohio State will be able to compete. championship, which they should. You're exactly right.
They missed out on the Maryland game, the Illinois game, and by the way, the last 2 Michigan games have been over at half.
Trust me, I've been there.
They're a 30-point favorite for this one.
That's exactly right. And the one thing, though, and Ohio State fans are not going to like this. If you do get a scenario where Florida, although unlikely, beats Alabama,
that's the problem.
And Clemson beats Notre Dame, and you're only sitting at 6 games, or let's say 5 games, and they don't change the rule, and they don't let them into, and they just get some crossover game next year, and they're a non-champ 6-0 Big Ten. Ohio State team, they could get past.
Now, there, I'm okay with it. If they get past because Bama loses, and it's an argument like, hey, we still think you're great, but there's just more. I've seen more quality from somebody else. But my thing is, I can see Ohio State this morning. I'm defending them. They look the part. They are the part. The games they missed are irrelevant blowout games against the Illini and the Terps.
And we fail to realize also, and listen, I get labeled a Buckeye defender, and that's fine. I mean, they're a great program. They're on a historically great run right now. They're clearly in the class of Clemson and Alabama. And Notre Dame's on a great run right now, and I think it's better. We've got some of these northern teams that are playing great football.
Totally agree.
Okay, so having said that, let's just keep in mind now that as great as Alabama has looked, they have had the ability to develop, right? It wasn't listen, I'm old enough to remember that in their first 4 games they gave up over 600 yards to Ole Miss, right? And everyone was like, well, maybe this defense isn't as good as we thought. And then all of a sudden they've corrected those deficiencies on defense. They've gotten better. Mac Jones has even gotten better. Now Alabama looks great. Well, let's afford at least in some vein, the same opportunity for development for Ohio State. Everyone's like, well, in their first 4 games, did you see how many yards Indiana threw for? Well, one, Indiana's a really good team. They are. And they proved that last week by not having their quarterback and still beating Wisconsin basically on the back of their defense, right? So that team is a really good team, which means that the win for Ohio State over Indiana is a really good win. And then let's also remember that last week, without 3 offensive linemen, a defensive end, a safety, and their starting linebacker, without their head coach and 3 more offensive assistants, they went out there and hammered Michigan State, who had just beaten Northwestern the previous week. So they got a lot better last week. Let's give them at least that opportunity for growth, which was afforded Alabama early in their season.
So, I think when I walk on the street, people walk up to me and go, hey, you're America's honesty broker. And so when everybody was kissing up to BYU,
that's hilarious.
I was here saying
hilarious.
I will defend 2, 3, and 4 loss SEC teams over an undefeated Mountain West team, and you guys all love BYU, and they lost to something that sounds like a soap, Coastal Carolina or something.
Well, Coastal Carolina, by the way, has 2 top 20 wins.
Oh,
well, they do. That's a fact. Listen, you want to be the honesty broker? I just brought you facts right in the middle of your forehead.
Okay.
They beat Louisiana, who beat a top 10 team,
but
Iowa State this year, and they beat BYU.
Beat Iowa State. Yeah, that put up a plaque for that.
The committee thinks Iowa State is really good. They
ranked
at 7.
Look, we're showing highlights. I can't believe it was not on cable access.
Listen,
the point being,
how about this being the point? Hold on, time out. How about we just afford them an avenue for the playoff, or let them break away and have their own national championship?
Okay, that's fine. I don't want to hear the Mountain West has to be afforded a chance at a national championship. Why? Why? Because they went undefeated and never played in a stadium with more than 22,000 people?
This is an awkward position because I am when it comes to big conferences, I'm a snob. Like you, I'm a big conference snob, and I don't think that the group of 5 schools play a requisite schedule or have a requisite roster to be able to compete in a 4-team playoff. I just don't, right? I think that you're taking an opportunity away from a more deserving team. Maybe that makes me a realist, but I will tell you that it's beginning to this whole notion that the playoff was in some way also an avenue for those little guys to play, right? Like we were sold that, and that's just a lie. So here's the thing. One of 2 things, college football, either expand playoff and create an avenue for a group of 5 team to at least go compete. If you want that so badly, then at least make a legitimate avenue, or let them break away. And let's create 2 divisions of major college football where you've got those schools vying for an 8-team playoff and a national championship, which I think would create more interest in those schools and those games, and let the Power 5 go and have their own playoff.
So let me ask you this. This is funny. So when they started this playoff, I missed this conversation. One of the arguments was it'll give little guys a chance to get in?
Yes, that was one of the arguments.
I was never interested in that.
It was a false argument, but that was one of the arguments, that this expanded playoff, because there were no because it wasn't just 2 teams and it was now 4 teams, and we're going to take just the 4 best, and there's no criteria of having to win your conference, that this is going to create an avenue where a little guy could get in there. And it's like, no, that's false. That's absolutely
the
false.
opposite has happened.
The opposite has happened, and
we think less of little guy, which again, I don't feel I'm being a snob saying I like Miami Beach better than living in Nebraska in the winter. I think it's a nicer place to live. I don't think it's being snobby. Is it being snobby? Is that being snobby?
It's rude.
Well, rude, but that's not snobby.
No, but you are America's rudeness broker as well.
I'm just saying the idea that I'm supposed to be, hey, Colin, you have got to consider the Mountain West. I do consider it to have beautiful campuses.
The Mountain West is not being considered right now. It's more the American with Cincinnati, and then you've got the Coastal and the Sun Belt.
Okay.
By the way, there's a path for USC to potentially make the playoff.
Listen,
just saying.
I have a lot of connections there. I've tried to be kind. They'd get their doors blown off by any of these good teams.
Possibly.
Luckiest.
But what happens if Bama wins, Notre Dame wins, and Ohio State wins out? Who's the 4th team?
Florida?
With 2 losses?
Yes!
Oh.
Okay, Florida plays USC tomorrow. Who are you taking?
I think Vegas would put Florida as a 5-point favorite.
Okay, let's put Florida in.
So we're just going to have Vegas do it.
Wait, time out.
My head hurts.
If that's your pushback, for years I've been saying
games have to matter. Games have to matter.
They do. I said,
and so we can't just
50%.
put, I mean, they lost to Texas A&M. By the way, your better argument would have been, well, let's put Texas A&M in, because at least Texas A&M beat Florida on the football field, would only have 1 loss.
All right, that's fair. I'm not anti-USC. Don't marginalize me. Love them dearly. They're the luckiest team in the country. During COVID, Bama, Notre Dame, and Oregon got knocked off their schedule.
They are lucky. I'm just telling you that if you do get a Bama win, a Notre Dame win, and Ohio State wins out, like, who's the 4th team?
Then you go find an SEC team.
So you want A&M in that regard?
I have no problem with A&M in that regard.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm consistent with this.
That's fine.
And you laugh, but there have been nights I've had 2 people come up and say, hey, you're America's honesty broker. That's how people view me. I'm very proud of that. Okay, one more thing here. What time do we have? One more thing. Oh. So don't you think it's kind of coy? So this has not been a great year. I like Harbaugh, right? But I know the game he's playing. So, this is a funny game. So Jim's in trouble. That team's just a gravel road of nothing. And all of a sudden this week, Harbaugh up for 5 NFL jobs. And all of a sudden, Jim's signing an extension at Michigan. He leaked that story so he could sign an extension.
Well, the extension was worked on in February.
Maybe he knew they were going to be bad.
And, well, no, he pulled out of those extension talks because of COVID and the upcoming financial
Why did all of a sudden this week, Jim, the NFL team's keenly interested in Harbaugh? We're in week 12.
Michigan is not going to fire Jim Harbaugh.
They should.
So the only way that they part ways is if it's amicable and Jim has a landing spot in the NFL. So this might be, listen, and I know that there are ongoing extension talks. This is true. Okay? There are extension talks with Jim and Michigan right now. Now, from what I've been told by sources close to it, they're not very close on the money. Michigan wants to take him way down in base salary and make it an incentive-laden contract. You've got to beat Ohio
because
State.
Of this year?
You've got to win a division.
Oh, come on.
You've got to do all these sort of things to make the money that you're making right
boy.
now. So, from what I've been told, he's thinking to himself, well, do I want to do that or just go back to the NFL? And so he's weighing that right now. From what I've been told, the ball is in Jim's court, whether he wants to accept this extension from Michigan, which would be a 3-year extension, or move on and go try something else.
I will say this. This is a good one. I would accept an incentive-laden contract if it said you got to win a bowl game and you got to be Michigan State. I'm not putting I got to beat Ohio State in there because Ohio State's a better program. That's like asking Auburn, you got to beat Bama.
I don't know the specific language. I'm just saying in an incentive-laden contract, I'm sure that there's some language in there about beating certain teams, winning certain divisions, potentially a conference crown, potentially a playoff berth, so on and so forth.
You set 44 school records at Colorado. You were known as loving to check down the swing pass. That was old.
Is that what I was
swing
known for?
pass Klatt?
Is that right?
What are you proudest of setting?
Well, I left as first of all I was a walk-on, and then I left as the all-time leading passer.
Okay, but what stat did you like the most? Give me one that really means something to you.
Most fourth quarter comebacks.
Now that's good. So you're clutch.
I was clutch.
You're pretty good on this show. now the downside is first 3 quarters you were really struggled.
That might not be far from the truth, folks.
So you're the most fourth quarter comebacks in Colorado football history?
Yeah, at the time, yeah. I don't know if that's been passed or not.
That's quite a stat. You were the Elway of Colorado
There you
football.
go, and I grew up idolizing Elway. I grew up in Denver, so like the Duke was my guy, you know? It pains me to see them struggle the way
I know.
they
Listen,
struggle.
when you're our age, I'm a little younger than you, but when you're our age, Elway is all of our idols. I was a high school. Everybody wanted
absolutely.
to be. John Elway is it.
And of that group of quarterbacks, he's still a top 5 quarterback all time. At least in my eyes.
Okay. You know what's funny about this? And this is just a weird thing. More players want to be Steph Curry than LeBron because LeBron physicality, you can't be LeBron as a kid.
That's right.
So kids want to be Steph because they look and think, I can be Steph. I can run around, small guy, shoot. Brady, as great as he is, I don't think he's the idol of a lot of quarterbacks. Because Elway there were so many things about him. Stanford, the arm, the drama. Like, more people want to be Favre. Brett Favre, I think, is what a generation of kids wanted to be. Brett Favre and Elway. Brady's better than both statistically, but I don't think kids idolize Brady as much.
Think of it this way. John Elway was 20, 30 years ahead of his time. If he came out now with his build and athletic ability and arm, people would be talking about him as the greatest quarterback prospect ever.
Go look at YouTube Warren Moon in 1974. I was there. I was in the stands. Warren Moon was 6'4", mobile, with a rocket arm.
Yes.
People understand.
Yes.
Warren Moon. Nobody
and
watched.
lost half of his career in Canada.
In Canada.
I totally agree. By the way, when he got to Houston, you remember his Houston teams and Denver and Buffalo, like they had some unbelievable AFC matchups. Back in the day when the NFC was winning every single Super Bowl, it was like Houston, Denver, and Buffalo were playing unbelievable AFC playoff games. And by the way, the Browns with Bernie Kosar under Marty Schottenheimer.
I'll give you an example. Want to hear a Elway story? True story. First NFL game I ever went to. Do we have any music for Uncle Colin's story time? So when I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money. And I was mostly a Husky fan over a Seahawks fan. I love college football. And I don't know really why, because I don't know, because Huskies around longer or something, I don't know. And so I went to my first Seahawk game with the Jones family, and I sat first row, third deck. I got there early, and John Elway was there.
In the old Kingdom.
And they had the big Seahawk logo.
Yeah.
The bad AstroTurf, Jim Zorn, Steve Largent, Sherman Smith, Jack Patera. So we get there early. It is 2 hours before game time. I have binoculars. John Elway's in a half shirt, a half seat. Those were cool back then. I still wear them, but most people don't. John Elway in the middle of the Seahawk helmet, the ear hole at the 50-yard line, and I'm not making this up, was flicking his wrist and hitting the little flag in the corner.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I'm not joking.
Oh yeah.
50 yards. And he was aiming for the flag.
The pylon.
The pylon. And hitting it about every fourth throw.
Do you remember the wide receivers for Denver back in the day?
Yes.
Like Mark Jackson and Ricky Nattiel.
And they had a tight end, Mobley, if I recall.
No, he was a linebacker. Mobley was Clarence K was a tight end.
Clarence K.
Off the field problems.
Haven Moses.
Haven Moses was there. Dan Reeves, who was the head coach for the Broncos back then, in like 86, 87, Kubiak was the backup. Gary Kubiak was the backup quarterback, and he would throw, the ball on one-on-one routes and all sorts to all those wide receivers a lot. And then John would come in and they would start dropping the ball because John threw the ball so hard. So Dan Reeves put in if you're a starter, you're not allowed to catch a ball from Gary Kubiak in practice rule. And so those starters had to either catch it from the Jugs gun marked all the way up to 10 or Elway. That was it. And so they would just shred those old Newman gloves, those old leather gloves. They went through tons of leather gloves, but you'd like that. Dan Reeves, no starter can catch a ball unless it's from John Elway or the Jugs gun.
So we learned today, when I walk down the street in Manhattan Beach, what do people call me?
A weirdo because you got a half shirt on.
That's pretty
Those are back, by the way.
Once again, a little ahead of the curve here. All right, get out of here, Klatt. this week? What game you got?
Oh, high school, they love them.
Game? It's not official. Okay. It's not official. I can't say anything.
2020 college football isn't official.
By the way, watch out for UCLA and Iowa. There it is. Bring it up.
They don't play. Wisconsin plays Iowa, don't they?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. UCLA in their game against USC and Iowa against Wisconsin in their game.
All right,
just gave you 2 upset alerts.
Hey, folks.
Why does he know? Why get to follow?
Folks, there'll almost be an upset. Riveting content.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Hey everybody, it's AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys. Check me out with my girl Cheryl Burke and my boy Renee Elizondo on iHeartRadio's Pretty Messed Up. This show talks about pretty much anything, everything, love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it, and a little bit of dancing as well.
So you guys, we're into this now, what, 4 deep?
Yeah.
And I really like what's happening with us. Apparently we're connecting with people. Not everyone has to have a drug problem to understand what it feels like to feel less than.
Because we're also talking about mental health, right? We talk about the stuff that people don't really want to talk about, or that they feel maybe they're alone when feeling certain things. And I've never been this vulnerable and open, especially on Dancing with the Stars. You guys see an edited version of me, but we, we get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. So just make sure you listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let the whole world sing along. Let the whole world sing along. Let the whole world sing along.
Hey there, it's Leanne Rhymes. These days it's pretty easy to feel way too overwhelmed and disconnected, not only from each other but ourselves. My new podcast, Holy Human, focuses on living our best, fullest lives by expanding into our most complete and whole selves. I'd love you to join me as I sit down with people who I've found to be some of the world's most inspiring and enlightening motivators, healers, and wise souls. Together, we'll make more sense of this crazy existence we all share, ourselves and each other. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Cam Newton and the Patriots look to keep rolling against Aaron Donald in the NFC West, leading Rams tomorrow, 7:30 Eastern on Fox NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video.
This game is, in a strange way, fascinating to me. If Belichick can beat McVay and they go 7-6, it is one of the great. You have to put Belichick at least in the discussion for Coach of the Year. You have to. They literally cannot throw the football.
And they lost Cam to COVID.
They lost 8 opt-outs. I was wrong. I didn't think Belichick could win games. They are a fumble against Buffalo late from going to overtime in that game, and at one play against Seattle, they could, if they win tomorrow and are 7 or 6, they are 2 plays from 9-4. There's nothing in this league, even Tomlin 11-1, that rivals that.
And this is a year that he hates.
He's
like
told,
he has a plan.
No, I have enough sourcing in New England. He thinks the whole year is nonsense. He's just like, this is just a nonsense year. Yeah. Can't do anything. Guys, Lamar had 1 practice last night. By the way, mdrivestart.com. It's one scoop. Enzymes, lean muscle, digestive enzymes, protein. mdrivestart.com. Great chocolate mousse smoothie in the morning. I took it this morning. I do every day. It's great. Joy with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Well, my Steelers lost to Washington on Monday night, and dropped passes were a big part of the game.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin has some not so nice words about the drop passes.
They can catch the ball or they can get replaced by those that will catch it, and it's just as simple as that. Like I've often said, man, I expect guys to make routine plays routinely. And when there's a pattern of that not happening, then we got to look at, who we're throwing the ball to. The coaching of catching the football for those who are employed to do it at this level is not something that I got a lot of patience for.
He's not wrong. drops by wide receivers and Eric Ebron.
And these are not, a lot of times, Joy, they're not terribly difficult. Again, you're not talking about a quarterback with weird delivery, harsh weather environments. They're like stuff out in the flat.
Or someone that you haven't been working with all season, or who's had a week off, or something. Like Lamar Jackson, there were a couple passes last night. You're like, you'd like that to be a little tighter. Okay, he said one practice and one walkthrough.
It's just,
there's no excuse. If it's hitting your hands, you should catch that.
Yeah, it has been noticeable. They're the only team in the league we're talking about drop passes. Is the Steelers.
They have 31, which is a league high.
That's a lot.
So it's a problem.
And it feels like it's worse in the last 3 to 4 weeks.
It has been. So entering week 13, Pittsburgh was 78-1-1 when jumping to a 14-plus point lead at Heinz Field. So this was also a very significant loss for them. Now they still hold a 2-game lead, which is really, it's wild that they went into this game undefeated, and so much has happened just from this one loss. There's so many implications from this. They have a 2-game lead plus the first half of the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Browns in the AFC North. So Browns are obviously 9-3. Myles Garrett feels like they've opened the door. Have the Steelers. I think the Steelers will be okay.
Yeah.
They do have the Bills, which is a tough game. That's next at the Bills. Then the Bengals, Colts, which I believe they'll win, and then we have the Browns in week 17, which will be a very significant game. But they're tied with the Chiefs now at 11-1 in the AFC standings. They do hold the edge since their loss was out of conference, and the Chiefs lost to the Raiders in their conference. So right now the Steelers do still have the bye, but they need to be very careful moving forward for the rest of the season. They really need to tighten it up. I mean, I've reserved my extreme anxiety about this team. I obviously did not think that they were going to go undefeated, but I would have liked that loss to happen earlier and for it not to happen the way that it is, and obviously now they have significant injuries, so I do have more concern about this team now than I did a few weeks ago. I thought they were more dominant. So, poor Troy. Cowboys offense looked abysmal last night against the Ravens. Couldn't get anything done. And during last night's broadcast, Troy Aikman spoke about the current state of the franchise. He said, I wouldn't necessarily say this is over, but it's hard to keep saying that when you're not winning football games. I just don't know where this organization, where they go. There's just so many things that have to be addressed this offseason.
No lies told.
They're in a bad spot.
Yep. Expensive players that aren't great.
Well, so right now, I believe they have the fifth. Where are they in the draft? The sixth pick?
Fifth, I believe.
Fifth pick, yes. So they're 3-9 in the NFC East. They would currently have the fourth pick in fifth in the draft. They're behind the Jets, Jags, and Bengals. But the question is, because Dak is so is going to be so expensive. Now, Jimmy talked about it last night as well. They really need to work out a deal with Dak. They should have done it 2 years ago. They should have paid Dak before they paid Zeke, which was a big mistake.
Yes, a huge. Look, listen, I have my issues with Dak, but everybody tries to pay quarterbacks early. Nobody submits to you that paying running backs 2 years early is a good call. Nobody in the league thinks that's good.
Well, that's because if you think back on that situation, all anyone could talk about, this offense runs through Zeke, his offense runs through Zeke. It's all about Zeke. Look at the numbers when Zeke doesn't do well. It's not Dak. Well, Zeke's there now, and I understand their offensive line has had major issues, and they are not the same offensive line, and they're kind of living off of reputation at this point.
I told Goulet 2 weeks ago, there are times Tony Pollard is quicker. There are times that Pollard, I think, in certain downs, is a better fit for their offense.
I don't think that Zeke is washed.
No, he's not, but he's not.
But they should have paid Dak before they paid Zeke. And they're in the situation they are in now because of that. And now you either franchise tag him again, which will completely mess up the salary cap situation because he's going to be $40 million, or you try and work out a deal, which he may be more interested in because of the injury now. That is maybe change things for him. He might be a little bit more flexible. But Dallas is in a bad situation. If you trade back in the draft, you need so much. Yeah. You need an offensive line and a defense. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Finally, Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't played for the Giants since 2018, but they're clearly still on his mind. He appeared on the All Things Covered podcast on Tuesday and shared his feelings about departing from the Giants.
I never thought I would play for another team besides the Giants. I never wanted to win a championship for anybody more than the Giants, bro. It just was such a legendary place. I was very proud to be a part of that organization. I felt betrayed in a sense. Like, this coach had tried to turn me against my brothers and my people, and was telling the young guys to stay away from me because I'm not a good person or not a good team or a role model.
Some of it was you got to own some of your own stuff.
I don't think this was a healthy breakup for Odell, but I do think that once he moves on from the Browns, which look, I don't think that the Browns was ever a good fit for someone like Odell. I thought he was great about all of it. Like, he was a good soldier in Cleveland. Obviously, he's had a lot of injury issues, and we've seen what's happened with Baker since he hasn't had Odell out there. And I don't think that's Odell or Baker's fault. I always felt like this was a forced marriage.
Yeah, John Dorsey thought it would work, and you already had Jarvis Landry, and there was no reason for a second high-volume receiver.
You have to look for what actually fits for you, and Odell is not a fit in Cleveland, and that's not Odell's fault. Odell is a superstar. He's an NBA player in the NFL. Get him to a place where he can thrive in that situation. That's not Cleveland.
Also, he was with Eli Manning in a blue blood franchise. He went to a rookie quarterback. It just wasn't going to be a...
No.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line
Pro
News.
Football Focus can be a little bit like the Bible for us. One of the great say, not just opinions. That coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen.
Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be.
You were made for more. You have new levels in you. There are seeds of greatness waiting to spring forth.
You can't think negative thoughts and live a positive life. And on my daily podcast, I'll help you get your mind going in the right direction.
You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Chains that have held you back are being broken. Doors are going to open that you never dreamed would open. Now do your part. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Don't use your energy to feed your history. Use your energy to feed your destiny.
It's inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging. I think you'll like it.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha here, bringing you the devilish sounds and twisted treats of my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies, where I, your host, Kesha, bring you into my twisted universe, where the supernatural is, well, quite natural. Kesha and the Creepies explores supernatural subjects and alternative lifestyles with today's most exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult. You may know me from my party jams, like TikTok, We Are Who We Are, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable and mystical that drives these fascinating conversations that span non-traditional spirituality, psychedelic art, and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Bruce Gradkowski played over a decade in the NFL. He knows his stuff. Still holds all the records, Toledo football, lots of them. He works for PFF. He's a senior analyst. And I often say I like PFF because my eyes tell me things. I go to PFF to see if the data backs what my eyes tell me. And Bruce is now joining us live. All right, let's start with the Steelers. My eyes tell me they're not buttoned up. There's certain things they don't do well. What do the grades say? Are they good enough offensively to be a team that can get to a Super Bowl?
Well, I'll tell you what, Colin, you really sparked my family in Pittsburgh with that cigar post you had. Colin, they're like, oh, Colin's your boy, man. You got to talk to him. That's insane. So you have everyone in Pittsburgh riled up right now. And I'll tell you what, there is some concern, right? I mean, the Steelers' offense, 28th in explosive play percentage, 28th in average yards per attempt. But, look, Ben's played into the strengths of the team. That defense is fierce. They get turnovers. They get after the quarterback. So he has not had to play any different way. What I think it comes down to is, what Ben do we see through the playoffs? That's where he has to come out of that phone booth as Superman and create those explosive plays for that offense. They have to figure out some way to be more explosive because, look, in the playoffs, if you're playing at Kansas City, they're going to put points on the board. Even if you hold them to 28 points, your offense still has to score more than that. So are you able to? I have faith the Steelers, look, don't panic. Tomlin's never panicked. They find ways to win, and that that's where my faith relies, Colin, is this team's mentally tough. They face adversity. They haven't even had a true bye to go and recap and look under the hood of what our tendencies have been all season and try to get better. So I still have faith in the Steelers. I know Steeler Nation was a little fired up at you, but we might have to come on your back porch, smoke a little stogie when they're in the Super Bowl.
All right, fair enough. Cleveland's 9-3. But what does PFF? What do the grades say? What do you buy? What concerns you with the Browns?
Well, I think this is a good football team. I mean, they've been top for most of the year for us at PFF. Their offensive line grading, the way they protect the quarterback. And now you have Baker Mayfield playing smooth, playing smart, playing confident. We don't really have to ever worry about him playing confident. But, man, it's matching up now. The thing the last few weeks I worried about Mayfield is he was missing too many easy passes. And then this last week, he put it all together. I think you have to give Kevin Stefanski just what a wonderful job he's been doing. Designing this offense around him. The running game, most explosive run plays for us at PFF was 61. So that takes pressure off the quarterback. And the defense now having Myles Garrett back. This is a team, man. The Steelers, they better be careful and win out the rest of their games. You don't want the Browns creeping in that division.
Jalen Hurts over Carson Wentz. My eyes tell me Wentz has lost confidence, not talent. What do the numbers say?
Well, Colin, you're right about that because playing the quarterback position, it's more than statistics and physical tools most of the time. It's about that confidence. And it seems Carson Wentz is in that baseball slump. You know, you're trying too much. Now you're pressing. Now you're overthinking. I've been in that position before, and it's not fun, man. And I think Jalen Hurts gives them a little spark. I mean, Carson Wentz leads us at PFF with most turnover-worthy plays this year. You're not going to win a lot of football games. But the more striking stat to me was the uncatchable, inaccurate throws he was throwing into targets that were open per our PFF data. So their throws, Colin, that the receiver at least has a step on the DB that the quarterback should complete. Carson Wentz has the worst percentage of uncatchable, inaccurate throws. So I think Jalen Hurts gives them an opportunity. He's athletic. He holds on to the ball a tad too long. He's not a rhythmic type thrower, but I love his mindset, the adversity he's been through as a player, and I like this move.
Okay. I want to ask you about Taysom Hill. He's a little mechanical. Okay, when I watch him play, he's a little mechanical. But when you grade him and you look at it, does he grade similarly to Bridgewater last year with the Saints? Does he grade similarly to Drew Brees with the Saints? What do the numbers say?
Well, I'll tell you what, his intermediate passing, I think it was a few weeks ago, was really good. His play-action pass, Sean Payton knows how to structure that offense around him. And I wish I played for Sean Payton because he's going to make the quarterback better. The thing I love about Taysom Hill is he's a football player, Colin. So when you get in that huddle and you look the guys in the eye and you're telling on the play, they know you're going to battle with them. And I think that's more important than anything. And that's what Taysom Hill brings to you and brings to this football thing. The football team. Now, the only thing with Taysom Hill now, he's used to running down on kickoff and punt and being on special teams and being the wildcat, being a receiver. So now all of a sudden he's sitting on the bench drinking Gatorade while the defense is out there and while special teams happens. So how does he still stay in the flow of a game and be engaged? So if I'm the Saints, I get him running early in the game, get him hit, make him feel like he's a part of it. But I love Taysom Hill. If I'm a coach, I'm giving that guy a shot because of the football player he is and what he brings in offense.
Well, listen, all you Pittsburgh people that don't like me, Bruce has a restaurant called Social. It's in Toledo. They have great salmon tacos. What else do you have on the menu?
Build your own mac and cheese. We're going to bulk you up this offseason, Colin, to put some weight on you.
There we go. Bruce, good seeing you.
Hey, you too, brother. Have a good week.
Yeah, I was a little testy with Pittsburgh. But, it's funny. They have the fewest explosive plays. And then you look at, the one thing when you talk about Cleveland, and it was funny yesterday, you were like, you like Cleveland over Pittsburgh. If you go to, because I don't watch offensive line play, like I don't know it. So that's where I really lean on PFF. I go to their offensive line play and their grades. I think I recall before last week's and I like the Browns against the Titans. That was one of my bets of the week. Cleveland had the highest ranked pass and run blocking offensive line.
No, they're playing really well.
Last year, they had the worst tackle pairing in the league. They went and got Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills they drafted, and their interior line is among the highest. And I'm not, I'm not taking a shot at Baker. When you when you have time to throw and a running game, it makes the quarterback position so much easier. And Baker looked great last week. Streaming service called Discovery Plus. Some of your favorites like the Food Network and HGTV. Exclusive originals too. Discovery Plus coming next year, US only. Hour 3 in the herd. Next.
There is a Hindi phrase I love. Kuch bhi ho sakta hai. It means anything can happen. And from my own experience, I know it's true. I'm actor Anupam Kher. You might know me from Silver Linings Playbook or one of my Bollywood films. But in my podcast, Anupam Cares, I wanted to share some things you may not know about me. I grew up in Shimla, a remote hill station in India, in the Himalayan foothills. And as a boy, it was a world full of possibilities. It's where I had my first kiss, where my father became obsessed with our local bread seller, and where I learned my most important lesson about failure. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits. After all, it's the stories we tell ourselves that shape how we live, the good, the bad, and the surprising. But let's focus on the good. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's ANUPAM, Anupam Cares.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just 3 fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex and the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death.
So listen to Cadaver Gals.
New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Kate Berlin.
I'm Jacqueline Novak.
We're comedians, best friends, and consumerist hogs, hemorrhaging cash in the wellness world.
That's why we made a podcast, Poog, with the Big Money Players Network and iHeartRadio.
Though we suffer from no ailments, we are looking to heal.
For us, salvation lies in the next product, practice, or potion.
This is our hobby.
This is our hell.
This is our naked desire for free products. This is Poog. That's P-O-O-G. Poog on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts,
or wherever you get your podcasts.
About a Girl is a new podcast about the women behind musical legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. These are 12 incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. It's hosted by me, Eleanor Wells, and executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Well, he played in the NFL for 12 years and remarkably made the Pro Bowl in 9 of them. He was a 2-time NFL sack leader, and if I remember the story correctly, DeMarcus Ware grew up in around Auburn, Alabama. And Alabama and Auburn did not offer him a scholarship. Isn't that amazing? That tells you the talent in the South. That tells you the talent. DeMarcus Ware, if I recall, not offered a scholarship. Let's bring him on live. He's got a new fitness app. That is the story. I swear to God, I heard that story years ago. You grew up in Alabama, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Alabama, man. I got one scholarship going to Troy University, and I played wide receiver, converted to defensive end. How about that?
What were you like in high school? Were you skinny and no good or what?
All of the words you just said were just smart as crap.
That is funny.
So I made good grades.
There you go. Doesn't surprise me. So I want to talk about first about a team that you used to face all the time, New York Giants. Because Jason Garrett, you know well. Garrett gets fired in Dallas, goes to the Giants, and everybody says, oh, boy, that's bad for him. They're no good. And then I watch the Giants with Colt McCoy and Daniel Jones, and I'm like, I got to tell you, it's clever. It's multiple. Are you surprised he's had his success with Colt McCoy and Daniel Jones?
I'm not surprised. because one thing that he always talks about in his motto is the team, the team, the team. I know that the pandemic was crazy, with McCarthy and him not being able to be there with the team, but I knew that Jason Garrett would communicate as much as possible over Zoom or whatever else virtual thing that they can get the team going to really build that character that the guys need to really propel them throughout the season. And you can see that they didn't start off as strong, but you can see week after week they're winning football games.
Well, Dallas struggled initially, so what do you hear from former Cowboys about Mike McCarthy? Is he connecting with players?
During the offseason, it was a challenge because when you come in as a new coach, first of all, you have to be very, very vocal, right? He's an older coach, so he relies on his veterans to sort of pick up the pieces where he left off, and I think that that's not happening. Like the DeMarcus Lawrences or the Leighton Vander Esch's, the leaders that should be on the team, but also all the injuries. The leaders on the team, they're majority all injured, like Tyron Smith and just to name a few, Lyle Collins. All of those guys are actually not there to implement his character of the team. So it's a challenge for him, and I can see that now. Last game it was 14-17 at halftime, and they came out still a little dead, a little bit soft. So the leadership is what propelled these guys into getting them to where they need to be, and I'm not really seeing that.
It's interesting. I'll tell you a weird story. So when I used to cover Oregon football, and they had an old stadium, and then Phil Knight, who founded Nike, gave them a bunch of money, and they had a new stadium, and their facilities were unbelievable. And after the facilities for a couple years, Oregon was not quite as physical, and many people said their facilities are so nice, they're so entitled, the team got soft. And I think about Dallas. Best practice facility in the league, best stadium in the league, multiple players making star money and increasingly not productive. Now I'm not saying anybody in the NFL is soft, but when I watch Dallas, they're not a physical team to me. And I think to myself, best practice facility, overpaid guys, best stadium, for best team playing. Do the Cowboys ever, I know they've had a lot of injuries, but did you ever feel like sometimes there was a little fat cat feeling in Dallas? Because right now, they got a lot of guys making star money, and I'm not seeing star productivity, DeMarcus.
When I played, I remember every team that we played, they said we walked out like we were gladiators, like we were monsters. They're like, they are so big. They are so intimidating. And we just run the plays that we want to run, and you got to own up to it. You just got to take that, right? But now it's a different challenge to where you have a lot of the players that are there. Do they still have that gladiator mentality? Because if it's 14-17 at half, and I have an opportunity as a leader to now make a statement against the Ravens, I promise you we're not losing that football game because of who we are and what we stand for, and all of the injuries, all the battles that we've been through. Now, how can we prove everybody wrong with what we got, with what the leadership we have? And like again, I said earlier, I'm not seeing a lot of that. I'm not seeing a lot of that grit, a lot of that thump in the trenches, to where you see guys making those big hits, and like a play like this right here, I probably wouldn't even come on the football field if a quarterback ran through the middle of the defensive line like that. That should not be happening.
Yeah. So the Cowboys have mostly been good, not great, over the last decade. So it's very doubtful they're going to have a top 5 draft pick again. So they're going to have a top 5 draft pick. This is rare air. Dallas generally doesn't draft top 3, 4. They did a few years ago to get Zeke, the Tony Romo injury year. So this is a prized pick. There are great quarterbacks. We know in the top 10, 15 picks, you're getting like, these are the best of the best. If you have that pick, they've got defensive issues. They don't need a wide receiver, that I know. They have O-line issues. There are some good quarterbacks. What would you do to start the rebuild, DeMarcus, for the Cowboys with that pick?
If I'm giving up over 250 yards, like last game, over 150 yards a game, I would go and get an anchor in the middle of the defense, because obviously there's somebody that's not there, that's not anchoring, that's taking up 2 guys to where a Leighton and Jalen Smith can really move around and make plays. So I would go get a monster in the middle. defense, there has to be a beast in the middle of the anchor to now let everybody else loose, the DeMarcus Lawrences, the Alden Smiths, the Randy Gregory's of the world, so they can be effective. That would be the first thing. I would get somebody that's going to bring the thump, like I said, to the defensive line, but also that grit. Where's that gritty person? That person that's very vocal. I hadn't heard anything from anybody, but I just been seeing a lot of losses.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Jalen Hurts is going to replace Carson Wentz. So when you're a player in a locker room and a quarterback is struggling and they put the backup in, do you feel bad for the starter? Do you question the coaching staff? How does it land for players what's going to happen in Philadelphia?
You know, it was a time to where, let's say when Romo came in and Drew Bledsoe went out, I was like, okay, well, you have Romo coming in, but what really sold me on the deal was the plays didn't change, and a quarterback that came in with authority, with laughter, with confidence. Someone who wanted to make us better but not turn the ball over. And sometimes you need that spark from the whole team of change. And then the guys corral around you a little bit, because week after week, if the same quarterback is doing the same thing, I'm going to start bickering a little bit and saying, hey, you can't be turning the ball over like this. We're not converting on third downs. Who else do we need to put in there to be the catalyst to keep us going?
Yeah. I want to go back to McCarthy. Old school. You said old school, which leads me to believe you tend to be not a fan of old school. Do you think he should retain his job? Do you think he's the right voice for this roster?
I think he's the right voice for the roster, but the thing is, you have to win these last football games and get the mentality of what it feels like to win. Going into next season, knowing that there's not going to be a crazy pandemic, you instill the character of what the McCarthy way with the Dallas Cowboys, and then you establish the leaders that need to lead that's going to help you from an offensive and defensive standpoint to now make your motto stick. So I think he is the guy, but he never had a chance to really talk to a lot of the players in the offseason and instill who he was and how he does things. And I think this offseason is going to be good for them if they win some football games.
Right. By the way, you have a new fitness app. It's called DTW, Driven to Win. DTW. It's DeMarcus.
D2W.
What did I say? DTW? D2W. By the way, you have weights behind you. This is a silly question. So I'm not. I lift weights, but mostly just to keep in shape so I can eat more. At your most, D2. At your most, what did you bench?
I benched 425. I run about 425, squat about 600 when I was playing. But now it's all changed, man. I've gotten an opportunity to really give back, because when I retired, 3 back surgeries, 1 neck surgery, I didn't have an opportunity. That's when I retired. And then I came up with this app. I said I wanted to make my new locker room the weight room and motivate people through fitness. So for the last 2.5 years, I've been working my butt off with all the content in this app. But I wanted people to have the experience that NFL athletes have. So that's why I added in 3D models, augmented reality, but also artificial intelligence that grows with you along the way. And this is for everybody. The beginner, meaning the first time someone ever goes and works out like you, right? You say you just work out just a little bit, all the way to the advanced athlete. And you have a user experience to where you can actually put it in the room with you and have a virtual trainer with you from your cell phone, and shows you how to do all of the exercises, the tempos, the reps, any variations, and it takes you through every single aspect of fitness.
Okay, Driven to Win, DTW. You're one of the good guys. I love having you're such a positive force, and I love that. Now that you're a weak, frail old guy, how much do you bench?
I probably put 315 on the bar every once in a while. I have 315 actually behind me. I was benching it before you called me, just to make sure I got a little bit of a pump. The whole deal. But probably about 315. That's what I would always usually put on the bar sometimes at the most.
Just a little pump. Just need a little pump. It's what you do before a show, Goulet. You get on you got pizza pump. Just a little. Just want to have that little. Good, DeMarcus, great seeing you.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right, one of the good guys. What a great story. Wide receiver, skinny kid, Alabama, had good grades, so he got into college, but nobody was interested. It's just it's so funny because like in basketball, there's not a lot of DeMarcus Ware stories. Like really, you can really tell LeBron like 12. Like in basket, I always tell the story. I'm in Hartford, going to one of my daughter's AU things, whatever. There's a huge gym, and there must be 30 teams, and I can literally spot a little tiny girl way in the other court, and there was a bunch of like college basketball coaches or high school coaches, and I'm like, who's that with the handles? They're like, oh yeah, she's the best player here. Like she's like 7th grade.
Yeah, you can see talent in
basketball like pow. Football, half the league is undrafted. Isn't that
Schler said something the other day that I've literally been thinking about for the past couple of days, because we talk all the time, like, how would we build teams if we were GMs or if we owned a team? Like, what kind of guys would we draft? And Jimmy talks about it all the time because Jimmy's one of the greatest,
brilliant,
all-time drafters. And you love the draft, and it's so hard. It's just such a crapshoot. I think I would look for guys who you knew were smart, but like not necessarily book smart, like understood the game. Because Schler said the other day, everyone who's going to make it to the NFL is going to be physically gifted, right? You're not going to be in that conversation. But do you understand the game? Like, are you cerebral enough to handle it on that level? And I think that's the kind of guys that I would look for.
Well, it's like we had Logan Ryan on the other day, and he was a former Patriot, so he goes to Tennessee, and he's basically a mentor to the Giants, and he's the New York Giants secondary, which still needs another corner, and it's like he's teaching them how to play. I always notice this, like the New York Giants, they get beat on touchdowns, but they no cheap touchdowns. The Patriots don't give you any cheap touchdowns. That's the difference. Like Dallas gives you freebies. Like I will say this, Mike Tomlin defenses generally don't give you a lot of freebies. And that to me is good coaching. Sometimes you have personnel issues. But Belichick's defenses, and Brian Flores is the exact same way. When you watch Miami, you rarely watch Miami's defense and think, oh my God, blown coverage. Somebody is wide open. That's the difference in coach. And now that's not just coaching. Are players coachable? Can they consume all this information?
Yeah, you can only be as detailed as your players can.
And can cognitively, on the fly, can they handle it? So, no, it's a good point.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen.
Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be.
You were made for more. You have new levels in you. There are seeds of greatness waiting to spring forth.
You can't think negative thoughts and live a positive life. And on my daily podcast, I'll help you get your mind going in the right direction.
You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Chains that have held you back are being broken. Doors are going to open that you never dreamed would open. Now do your part. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Don't use your energy to feed your history. Use your energy to feed your destiny.
It's inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging. I think you'll like it.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody, it's AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys. Check me out with my girl Cheryl Burke and my boy Renee Elizondo on iHeartRadio's Pretty Messed Up. This show talks about pretty much anything, everything, love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it, and a little bit of dancing as well.
So you guys, we're into this now, 4 deep?
Yeah.
And I really like what's happening with us. Apparently we're connecting with people. Not everyone has to have a drug problem to understand what it feels like to feel less than.
Because we're also talking about mental health, right? We talk about the stuff that people don't really want to talk about, or that they feel maybe they're alone when feeling certain things. And I've never been this vulnerable and open, especially on Dancing with the Stars. You guys see an edited version of me, but we get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. So just make sure you listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Go over the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Lamar Jackson returned last night to help his team with a 34-17 win over the Cowboys, and he talked after the game about missing time on the COVID reserve the week before.
Like, it felt like I ain't played a whole season. Like, I was like, I feel good to be back. Oh my gosh, even in practice, walking into weeks. Like it was 2 weeks I ain't see those guys. So it was like, man, I can't wait to get out there and perform for those guys because I know how much it means to us to win games.
He is so dynamic. Like last night, you could just tell he was dying to play. And you know what's funny about it too? This goes to show you something, Joey. A couple years ago, Sean McVay came into the league and said, I'm not playing any of my starters during the preseason. Everybody's like, whoa, you got 4 minimum. And the Rams started like 5-0. Lamar had a practice in 2 weeks and looked really good last night. Can we get out of the old school thinking that, once you've been in this league 3 or 4 years, you don't need a lot of padded practices?
Yeah, well, my only question with him, how he was going to look, was is he going to have any of the
timing?
COVID? No, well, the timing, yes, of course. And he saw a little bit of that last night, but is he just going to have any, lingering effects from COVID? Because he did have symptoms. And, I mean, Cam talked about it recently. Like, he wasn't 100% there.
He was fatigued.
Yeah, when he came back. I mean, this is affecting your body, even if you're a young person. If you were sick with anything, how's your body going to respond? But he looked great, and they were smart to lean into the run, being that Dallas has the worst run defense in the league, and it showed last night. We're showing one of his big runs. He was 12 of 17, 107 pass yards, 94 rushing yards, and 3 total touchdowns. 1 interception, but both teams had a kind of a bounce turnover. But
he also, for the people that say he can't throw, he had a great throw into the corner of the end zone. He had 2 huge third down throws. Now, because of his throwing motion, when it's ugly, it's ugly. He can go Carson Wentz on throws. You're like, dude, that's not even close. Like, he misses badly a couple times a game. But if we care about winning, he made the throws you have to. He's 27-6 as a starter. That's better than Josh Allen, who everybody loves.
Most quarterbacks miss a throw or two throughout the game.
Yeah, Lamar's can look ugly.
I think we are a little bit more, they can, but I think we're more critical of Lamar's throws because he's such a running quarterback.
And we have this built-in stigma that this isn't going to work. It looks like Kaepernick, but I'll say this, he's a better thrower than Kaepernick. Kaepernick had no curveball. Kaepernick threw...
I don't even think of Kaepernick when I see Lamar, though. Lamar is such a unique athlete and has such a unique style. Like, I don't compare, even though they're all running quarterbacks, I don't really see that in him. And similarly to, I don't see Kyler's game in Lamar's game. Like, they're both running quarterbacks. They both clearly need to run to be successful. But I think Lamar is very fast, and Kyler is quick, not fast. Like, they're both running quarterbacks, but they have such a different style. Anyway, he looked good last night, and I'm glad to have him back out there, and he's clearly happy to be back out there. So the Patriots crushed the Chargers 45-0 on Sunday. They play tomorrow night against the Rams, and Cam Newton recognizes that his stat line looks a little different than what New England fans are used to.
It's not the sexiest thing, you know what I'm saying? And I'll be the first person to tell you that. Like, people are always comparing quarterbacks to quarterbacks, which is the right thing to do, but the style of play is completely different. Obviously looking at my game and looking at Patrick Mahomes play, Tom Brady play, whoever is the gunslinger in this league that throws for a lot of yards, that's a way to win. I understand that.
This whole Patriots team is different than what Patriots fans are used to.
It's a power running team. And by the way, with no preseason, it was wildly inconsistent for the first 7 weeks. It's not as inconsistent now. Got about 4 or 5 games now. They changed fundamentally their offense. Well, what do you the first 7 weeks? It would be like good, bad, terrible. Okay, terrible, kind of good.
Well, they also were without Cam due to COVID. Yeah. But he's right. Like, if you look at his stat line against the Chargers, he was 12 of 19, 63% completion percentage, 69 passing yards, 48 rushing yards, and 3 total touchdowns, and they won 45-0.
It's a power run game.
So at the end of the day, if you get the win, it doesn't have to be pretty. But in New England, you're so used to seeing the Patriots play a particular way,
well, the
death by 1,000 cuts, and that's not what they're able to do this year.
Patriots have always had, nobody talks about, Pittsburgh does this well too. New England makes their receivers block. So they've always been a physical offense, so it wasn't as drastic a change as you think. New England tends to be one of the best blocking teams from the tight end, from the receiver position. N'Keal Harry, big physical kid, may not be able to separate, but he can block. Edelman can block for his size. So, I mean, it's a unique way to win, but I am taking the points. I'm taking the points tomorrow night. right, what are they getting now? 5? I got 6, but what is it, 5 now, Fox Bet? New England getting 5 against the Rams tomorrow. I'm taking the points.
It's going to be a good game. Finally, number 4 Ohio State was forced to cancel their game this weekend against Michigan due to COVID.
Yeah.
This had threatened to leave the Buckeyes one game shy of being eligible for the Big Ten championship because they are 5-0. According to Yahoo Sports' Pete Thamel, the conference is expected to amend its 6-game minimum rule to allow Ohio State to get into the game.
Should.
The vote is considered a formality, which would lead to Ohio State playing Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game on December 19th.
That's who should play. Yeah, man, that feels like the conference. That feels like a legitimate game. You win that, you're in.
They should absolutely amend this rule. It's good for the conference. It would be silly for them to keep them out of it, and there would be consequences to that as well.
Yeah, listen, it's COVID 2020. You got to be flexible.
Be flexible.
Just change crap. It's just the way it is.
Joel mentioned earlier, Ohio State's the only school in the conference that has missed just one game due to its own COVID positives.
That's right.
Every other team has been forced to cancel a game to the virus and hasn't missed at least 2 games. So they've had one game missed due to their own positive ones, but they've really been negatively affected by other schools.
Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan, their end got games canceled, of which they would have been. They're a 30-point favorite over Michigan before it was canceled. So don't blame Ohio State. I mean, it's just, again, Big Ten's cool. Be flexible. We're all trying to get through this crap through the vaccine. Just be flexible.
I think they will. Like I said, there will be more negative consequences to them not being flexible with Ohio State, who we know should be in the college football playoff, than for them keeping them out because of not enough games played. This is a year where everyone has to make amendments and make things work, and overall it would be good for their conference to have Ohio State.
Yes, of course.
So don't hustle backwards.
Yeah, Big Ten, get somebody in the conference championship. And I do think this year, depending on the seeding, I would love, if I had my druthers, Bama, Clemson play and Notre Dame, Ohio State play. That, in a COVID year, if that's what I get, that is fantastic. Bama, I don't want to see Bama, Clemson championship. Let's just see them play now. Boom. Yeah. And Notre Dame beat Clemson. Notre Dame, Ohio State.
I'm with you. That's yummy.
That's really good. I would promote that into another network. I would strongly encourage you to watch. Watch that. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line.
We're playing the game Lamar or less. We size up Lamar's numbers. I've defended him. And, he doesn't throw for big passing numbers, so we'll do the blind resume. Lamar compared to somebody, better or worse? This will be fun. I haven't seen this game yet. They made it up on the fly an hour ago. We'll see what it looks like. I'm trusting my staff, which is always dicey. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
My name is Jamie Loftus, host of shows like My Year in Mensa and the Bechtelcast. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works in American history. The story and its main character have been adapted, misinterpreted, and twisted over the years by Hollywood, by fashion, by fans of the book, and by the author himself. Lolita has gone from the tragic story of an abused 13-year-old girl to a cultural narrative that frames her as the seductress and to blame. So how did this all happen? It's a messy story. This is a story about a girl named Dolores, and I think she's gotten lost over the years. I'll be speaking with literary scholars, with experts on abuse, and with the actors who have played the part of Lolita and more. So let's get to the bottom of it, for her. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Kate Berlin. I'm Jacqueline Novak.
We're comedians, best friends, and consumerist hogs, hemorrhaging cash in the wellness world.
That's why we made a podcast, Poog, a quixotic quest for wholeness. Here's a little snippet of us trying out a top dollar massage gun on our muscle manipulation episode. Press on once. Now press the up dot.
Oh, damn, bitch. 2100.
Now, I want you to notice.
Whoa.
Do you want to know the story of the guy who created this device?
No.
No? You're such the rudest person.
I'm so rude. I'm here with this free product.
They say float it.
Ow, ow, ow.
And then
ow.
go deep.
Ow, the right inner thigh has pain. I repeat, the right inner thigh has pain.
You float it in. You float it in.
Whoa, the tension in the calves is reaching an all-time high. Though we suffer from no ailments, we are looking to heal.
For us, salvation lies in the next product, practice, or potion.
This is our hobby.
This is our hell.
This is our naked desire for free products. This That's P-O-O-G. Poog on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Lamar Jackson and the Ravens beat the Cowboys last night, so earlier in the show I was defending Lamar. I said, listen, if you buy a Ferrari, you don't worry too much about gas mileage. You put up with Shaq's bad free throws because he was so powerful. Tom Brady's not a very good athlete, but he's so good pre-snap. If somebody is exceptional at something, you tolerate they're so-so at something else. He's clearly good enough throwing the football to get teams to the playoffs, and that matters to me. This is not baseball where we care about stats. We care about winning. So today we're playing Lamar or less with Joey. Here we go.
All right, Lamar or less. Higher completion percentage through the first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Tom Brady?
Okay, it's a different era. So I would say, this is a trick question. I would say Lamar because 20 years ago, yeah, what is it?
63.8, 62.8.
Actually, Brady's higher than I would have thought. That's a pretty, 20 years ago? That's a pretty good completion percentage, to be honest with you.
Higher passer rating in first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers?
Okay, these are trick questions. Hold on. Aaron Rodgers has the second highest of all time. But you're asking me 33 starts. So Aaron Rodgers had a bad first year. I figured it out. Aaron was 6-10 his rookie year. He was great his second year, so I'm going to say Lamar.
Correct. Lamar 100.9, Rodgers 97.8.
I'm a wizard.
More passing touchdowns through the first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Peyton Manning?
Oh, no, that's different, though.
Passing touchdowns.
I would say Peyton Manning. I remember Peyton being pretty solid with that.
Lamar 58, Peyton 53.
Wow.
Fewer interceptions through the first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes? We know Patrick Mahomes does not throw interceptions.
So these are all trick questions. So 33 starts is 2 years. So 30, because Lamar only started 5 games his first year, 16-22. So by the end of his second year, again, I would say Patrick Mahomes.
Lamar 16, Mahomes 18. Now Lamar does more running, so maybe
he doesn't have as many.
That's why. More passing yards in the first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Ben Roethlisberger?
Oh, that's easy. Ben's first year, swear to God, he never threw. They were just all they were. Mike Tomlin, those guys were hiding him and Cowher. He had Cowher his first year, didn't he? Yeah, he had Cowher his first couple years. No, Ben didn't do anything his first year in the league. I'd say Lamar had more passing yards.
Nope. Big Ben. 6,873. Lamar 6,296.
This game's not as much fun as I anticipated.
Confident, though. More wins in the first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson?
Okay, so Lamar started at week 11, and he went 4-1, didn't he? And then he won MVP. Boy, that is tough. I'm going to say Russell Wilson.
Nope. Lamar at 26. Russell Wilson at 25, so it's not egregious.
All right.
Higher passer rating through the first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson?
Now, Deshaun was insane. So I'm going to say Deshaun Watson.
Watson's correct. 104.1, 100.9.
Yeah, remember Deshaun Watson had a 5-touchdown, 0. It was against Seattle or something. He had a ridiculous game on TV against the Seahawks.
More passing touchdowns in the first 33 starts. Lamar Jackson or Andrew Luck?
Nobody messes with Andrew Luck. I'm going to say Andrew Luck.
Lamar at 58, Luck at 48.
This stuff is a lot. Has anybody checked this stuff? This could be people in the back just making crap up.
You think so?
I don't think that one's right. Let's double check that one.
All right, run that one
back.
That
looks like an error on the staff.
More 300-yard games in the first 33
Passing yard games?
It does not specify. Lamar Jackson or Terry Bradshaw?
Well, Terry Bradshaw played when they didn't have helmets. So, I mean, give me a break. I'm going to say Lamar.
Correct. Lamar had 1, Bradshaw had none. Terry is also very open about it. He's not a big stat guy.
Well, Terry was also had Chuck Noll. Chuck Noll was like not a passing guy. People forget this. Bradshaw's first year, he got the crap kicked out of him. First couple years he did. But you know what's funny about Bradshaw? He's all goofy and stuff. He was so serious as a player.
Yeah.
Like no nonsense. He must have had a strict dad. Like he's like, I want to play for the Steelers. I'll never play for anybody.
He didn't have a strict dad. efficient story of the draft.
Like Terry was I remember Terry. I can remember he dated a skater. Oh yeah, JoJo Starbuck. I shouldn't be bringing this up on the. I remember Terry Bradshaw. I threw a football in high school because Terry Bradshaw put his finger on the tip of the ball. So as a kid, I thought it was cool looking. And later my dad's like, you don't have big enough hands.
Yeah, I think Terry said that was probably a bad idea.
Good job. You just stalled long enough so you didn't have to get any more questions wrong.
All right, what's the next one?
More rushing touchdowns the first 33 starts, Lamar or Cam.
Lamar.
Cam. 22, Lamar 15. And more rushing yards through the first 33 starts, Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick.
Michael Vick.
Lamar Jackson.
This game was stupid. That's the last time we're playing this game. It's
Not-
the dumbest game
dumbest
game we've ever played by far. Discovery Plus starts next year. It's a new streaming service. Be a lot better than that game we just played.
I'm Kate Berlant. I'm Jacqueline Novak. We're comedians, best friends, and consumerist hogs hemorrhaging cash in the wellness world.
That's why we made a podcast, Poog, with the Big Money Players Network and iHeart. Radio.
Though we suffer from no ailments, we are looking to heal.
For us, salvation lies in the next product, practice, or potion.
This is our hobby.
This is our hell.
This is our naked desire for free products. This is Poog. That's P-O-O-G. Poog on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts,
or wherever you get your podcasts.
You've probably heard a lot about Portland on the news, about the tear gas and the federal agents with snatch vans and the anarchy. What you probably haven't heard is the truth, because the reality of what happened in Portland is so much stranger, so much more incredible than what the mainstream media was willing to show. I'm Robert Evans, and along with all of the other voices on my podcast, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, I was there. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.